Let's go visit the Honolulu Museum of Art. This is a chariot paneling, and it's made out of polychromed wood. I found an anatomically correct breastplate. These sculptures are made out of wood, which is a really rigid material, which is why it's just extraordinary that they have this very voluptuous, fleshy, soft quality to them. These sculptors really knew how to transcend their materials. These are up against the wall. I don't even know that we can really call them sculptural reliefs because they are so three-dimensional. Within the dramatic sculpted forms, you have these lovely textures that are inherent to the wood. You can see how soft and fleshy that belly is. It's rare, at least in the US, to see a museum where the emphasis is largely on Asian cultures. There's far more Asian art here in this museum compared to other museums where the Asian art seems very minimal. When I took an art history class in art school in the 90s, I know that was a very long time ago, but we talked about Asian art for about 5 minutes. This is a shell matching game from the 17th to 19th century. It's created with shells, gold leaf, and colors. The composition for these paintings is the shell itself. That is predetermined for the artist working with natural materials. I think this is the first time I've ever been to a gallery in a museum that was dedicated entirely to the Philippines. It says that long before Western contact, the Philippines was a melting pot of people and a crossroads of trade with China and Southeast Asia. This is the Philippines gallery, but I'm really surprised that so much of the artwork here is really reminiscent of European Christian artworks. A lot of these sculptures really look like they could easily fit into religious art in the Middle Ages in Europe. By the 15th and 16th centuries, Islamic influences permeated southern coastal regions while European explorers began arriving in lowland and coastal areas. A lot of these sculptures really look like they could easily fit into religious art in the Middle Ages in Europe. Looking at these sculptures, I'm trying to dig into my art history knowledge to see where various stylistic choices might match other countries and centuries. It says that Christian deities largely replaced indigenous religious figures as Christianity was spread by the Spanish throughout the islands. Muslims in the south and animists in remote areas in the islands retained traditional religious and cultural practices, but these represented just 10% of the total population. That explains why a lot of these images are so similar to the religious sculptures in Europe. And there's an extraordinary range of painting and gilding. What's odd is that they're really all over the place stylistically. Usually whenever I go to a gallery of a specific region, you see repeated things that the artists are doing that are consistent. But here, everything's so random. It's like there's no remote cohesion at all. And I wonder if that's part of the history of the Philippines that caused the artwork to feel so stylistically haphazard. Same thing with these portrait busts. They feel like they're from multiple cultures and centuries. I can't really figure out how this all came to be within one culture. This one has really dainty features. It almost looks Victorian. This one could totally fit into ancient Greece or Rome. This one reminds me a lot of the giant Constantine sculpture, which was the introduction of the Middle Ages from ancient Rome. These figures are so primitive. I'm noticing in the low relief sculptural areas how they're seamlessly interwoven with the painted lines. Especially in the eye, you can see the carved out portions and then how the painted lines really follow that sculptural relief. This is a sculpture, but line is such a critical part of this composition in the painting and the sculpted areas. You start with the sculpted area, and then that green stripe is painted, followed up by all these other stripes of painted areas. This is a sculpture, but line is such a critical part of this composition in the painting and the sculpted areas. Some parts of this are raised, but you can see how dominant the lines and the color are. The rope sticks out the most, but the color really enhances what's happening around it.